Welcome everyone to the best cooking show on YouTube. Just kidding, Hungry Guy Cooking here with another recipe review. The show that no one watches. So if you made it to my channel, you made it to the dark side of YouTube. Welcome. In my videos, I test YouTube recipes and cookbook recipes and make sure that you don't waste your time trying to make them yourself at home. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Warcraft universe. I don't know why, it just resonates with me. Warcraft 3 was part of my childhood, and as I developed interest in cooking, well, I just had to pick up this World of Warcraft Cookbook. And today I'll be making this lovely cherry pie. And yes, it's not a typo, that's how it's called. Maybe they were drunk when they wrote the name, I don't know. I'm just a guy that reads the book. So, if you want to eat something from the Warcraft universe, you made it to the correct video. Okay, let's not waste any time and jump right into this recipe and see if you should make it at home. Okie dokie. First, the ingredients. Nothing too difficult to obtain, and you can find the whole list in the description. You might have an issue with the cherry juice, but I just bought a second bag of cherries and juiced them. You might not need it, depending on how much juice comes out from your whole cherries. And also remember to ask your friends and family if they have anything you are missing. They probably do, and it will save you a trip to the store and some money. But give them a piece of the pie after. Remember, if you borrow something to make the pie, they have to get a piece afterwards. Okay, step 1, making the dough. You want to cube up 115 grams of butter, and your butter has to be very cold. It's the key to making the pastry flaky. Mine was a little soft, so I popped it into a freezer for 5 minutes just to give it that final touch. I am using a food processor to make my pastry, but you can do it by hand in a bowl. It will take longer and you will have to rub the butter with the flour using your fingertips, but the end results will be almost the same. I popped in 306 grams of plain flour and 1 teaspoon of salt and gave it a pulse to distribute and aerate. Added the butter and gave it a couple of pulses. You want to get this sort of breadcrumb consistency. Next I added 60 milliliters of cold water and gave it a final pulse to bind. Then don't be silly like me and transfer everything into a bowl rather than the worktop. It will make the next step much easier. Combine the dough and knead it a little so the dough is almost uniform. Make sure not to overwork it, you want to knead it just a little bit. Form a circle, wrap it in cling film and pop into the fridge for 30 minutes to rest. This relaxes the gluten, making the dough soft and much easier to work with. After 30 minutes, start preheating your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 205 degrees Celsius. Divide the dough into 2 halves, pop one of them back into the fridge and roll out the second one. Annoying thing about this recipe is that they didn't provide any tray sizes, the book just specifies a pie dish. Like, come on, give us some numbers. Definitely not user-friendly. I just used a 9-inch tart pan I have, which ended up working nicely, so I would advise you to use something similar. Remember to roll the dough out larger than your pan, as the dough has to go up the walls. Once you think you are good to go, gently wrap it around your rolling pin and lay it over the pan. Be extra gentle. You don't want to tear it or make any holes. Once your dough is in, lift up the edges and again gently tuck in the corners. You just want to lift and gently push it in and trim off any excess. Okay. Things should be going well if you are following along, and if you end up with some tearing or unevenness, then use the trims to fill them in. Just like me. Set the base aside. Now this was the difficult part of this recipe. And I am actually surprised that we are not blind baking it, as this just creates opportunities for a soggy bottom, but we have to follow the recipe. For the filling, I grounded some cardamon seeds, as I have a jar of whole cardamom pods. Now you just have to take the seeds out of the pods and discard the pods and then just grind them in a pestle and mortar. In a large bowl, combine the sugar, cornstarch, cardamom, cinnamon and ginger. Whisk it up to distribute evenly and add in your cherries and cherry juice. Mix it well. In the recipe, they specify that you need 1 cup of cherry juice, which will come out from your frozen cherries, but if you are short, you will have to add some extra. My frozen cherries only managed to yield a half of a cup, so I would advise you to account for shortages here and grab a cherry juice or some additional cherries just in case. Now, I had an issue with the next step. You should pour the mixture into the base and then work with the other half of the dough. But I thought that was silly as the base would get soggy, so I just set it aside until the top was ready. I know I said I have to follow the recipe, but this isn't a large deviation, so stay calm. Like with the first half of the dough, you need to roll it out at least to the size of your pan. Cut it into some wonky strips like mine using a pizza cutter and get ready for the fun part. Transfer your filling into the base and weave the lattice together, layering the dough on top of one another until you get that basket weave appearance. Try to combine the edges together. It would have been much simpler if the excess wasn't trimmed off earlier, so I would advise you to keep yours and trim it off once everything is nice and combined. Next, you need to egg wash the pastry so it gets that beautiful golden color. I actually forgot and popped the pie into the oven without it, but my fiancé reminded me that I forgot, so that was lucky. For the egg wash, just mix an egg with a tablespoon of water and gently brush the pastry. Make sure not to get the filling on top as it will burn. Bake it for 40 minutes and it should come out looking something like this. What can I say other than that? I am proud of myself. It looked amazing. But, next is the most annoying step. You have to let it rest for 2 hours so that it sets. I know, ridiculous. But you can't avoid it, otherwise it will spill everywhere. Now, since I used a tart tin, I had the option to pop it out. I was slightly anxious, but I was curious to see how it turned out, and things went well. The filling also set nicely and it was still a little warm after 2 hours. Okay, let's see how it tastes. Look at this beauty, so beautiful. Oh, even the pattern is beautiful. I am proud of myself. This is a first pie I ever made in this style with the cross-hatchy thing. Can't remember how you call it, but it came out great. I'm proud. So don't be afraid to make pies. They are not as tough as they look. Now let's see if the pastry is cooked on the bottom, because we didn't blind bake this and I'm slightly on the fence about this. Let's give it a flip. It is soft on the bottom. It's not as crispy as it's on the outside. Let's taste it. I have to flip it back again. God damn it. See, nice and firm, solid pastry, holding its shape. Okay, let's taste it. Now, the pastry is flaky, but it is slightly tough because the ratio of flour to butter was very high. Now, the cherries are very soft, and this is because we are using frozen cherries as per the recipe. I think it would be better with fresh cherries. It's not too sweet, it's nice and acidic, but the pastry is just not buttery enough. I'm not getting that satisfaction that I would expect from a fresh pastry, especially homemade. Okay, overall score 3 out of 5. It's better than a store-bought pie, so it's definitely worth making if you feel like having some pie. But I would use a different recipe for the short crust pastry. If you have one that works well for you and you like it, just go with that. And I would use fresh cherries rather than the frozen ones, as they will have more flavor. Filling wise, you get those notes of cinnamon and nutmeg, but cardamom is slightly lost in the background. But it's a nice combination and you won't be disappointed if you like those spices individually. Overall, it's better than store-bought, but you won't die for it. There is no point starting a war over this pie with Alliance. Hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.